Chapter 22. Thursday mid-morning. Doreen stared at Nan. "Any chance I can talk to him myself?" she asked cautiously. Nan's wispy gray hair flew out around her head as she shook it rapidly. "Oh, I don't think so," she said. "He's almost gone." "What do you mean, he's almost gone?" Nan's eyes widened. "Dead, dying, 6 feet under, whatever you want to call it. He's not young, you know." "How old exactly is he?" "He's 92. And not likely to see next weekend, according to the gossip." Doreen groaned. "Is there anything other than gossip going on around this place?" "Lots of sex. Lots of betting," Nan said with a complacent smile. She hopped up and said, "I almost forgot." She went back inside and came back out and handed Doreen something, more like palmed it to her. "Don't look at that until you're on the way home," she ordered. Doreen sighed. "Are you trying to give me more money?" "Pocket it," Nan ordered, her voice turning into a light steel tone. "It's important." Obediently, Doreen slipped the roll into her pocket. "So, if he's dying, it's even more important that I talk to him," she said. "I did ask him, but he was being taken away to a hospice. There's not really room in any of the other hospices in town, so we are setting one up here," she said with a frown, looking around. "You would think they'd just leave him in his bed then." "Okay, so he's being moved to another area. Why can't I talk to him?" "I think it's only friends and family now," Nan said in a somber voice. "That's all they ever allow us on the last few days." "Even if it's the last few weeks?" Doreen had absolutely no experience with death or dying, outside of dying inside at the betrayal from her husband, and then from her own divorce attorney. Now that she had way too much experience in. Nan shook her head. "I don't think so," she said. "I could ask, but I don't think that'll be allowed." "Can you text him?" Doreen asked hopefully. "I just want to ask him about this case. Maybe he even has case notes," she said brightly. Nan frowned, pulled her cell phone toward her, and sent off a text. Doreen was amazed at how rapidly her grandmother's fingers moved across the screen. "Nan, you're a pro at this," she said. "I am," Nan said with great satisfaction. "Of course, keeping the bets online have helped. I have to use my phone a lot for that." Doreen just sighed. "You know you're not supposed to do that anymore, right?" "What? Put stuff up on the internet?" "Well, of course not, dear. It's in cloud storage and it's under a secure password." Doreen winced. "I meant, not do any betting or run a bookie operation. It's not mine. Absolutely no connection from me to that account." Doreen stared at Nan and shook her head. "You don't really believe that, do you?" she asked slowly. "What will they do to me if they catch me?" Nan asked with a big grin. It was really fun to go into the jail cell, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to get locked up for a day or two. It could be fun again. "What are you talking about?" Doreen said, leaning forward. "That would be terrible." "Only for you," Nan said, looking at her granddaughter. "That's because you're not ready to experience life yet." Doreen's jaw dropped. "So being locked up in jail is experiencing life? How does that work?" "You'll understand when you're older," Nan said. She put her cell phone on the table, lifted the teapot, and poured them each another cup. "I've texted him. We'll see if he gets back to me. He could be sleeping. They administer a lot of those heavy medicating drugs, you know? So basically, everybody's in a stupor right up to the end." "I don't think you should be talking quite so irreverently about death," Doreen said slowly. Nan looked at her in surprise and then laughed out loud. "Oh my dear, if I can't, who can? I'm at death's door. Whether it's today or next week or in 10 years, you know it'll happen." Doreen could feel tears gathering at the corner of her eyes. She wiped them away, trying not to let Nan see. But Nan caught sight of them. "Oh my dear, please don't be sad when I go." Doreen gave a half gasp. "How could I not?" she asked. "You know how much I love you, Nan. Please don't die anytime soon." "No, I figure I'll be around to torment you for at least 10 years. Besides, it'll probably take that long to get my money back from some of these gambling idiots who don't have it to gamble with." "You could let them off the hook," Doreen said. "Imagine the stress if they owe you a decent amount of money." "We tried playing for toothpicks," she said, "but then everybody got caught stealing toothpicks from the kitchen area. So then we switched to pennies. But that's really not very satisfactory. So we went back to money." "But pennies are money," Doreen felt compelled to point out. "Just not enough of it," she said. "When you walk away with baskets of pennies, they're heavy. None of us wanted to take them to the bank to cash them into something, so we were constantly running our own bank, cashing people's dollar bills into pennies so they could come and gamble again." Everything she said was done in such a common-sense tone of voice that Doreen could only stare at her. When Nan's phone beeped, they both leaned forward to see what the message was. But it was upside down, and Doreen had to wait until Nan read it. "He's awake," she said, "but he's got family with him. And his lawyer." Doreen just rolled her eyes at that. "Great," she said. "That'll never get me in there." "I told you," she said. "They do keep us locked away." "I just wanted to know more about Penny's family. Does he still have his case files?" Nan was busy with her fingers on the keypad as she sent yet another text. Finally, she got another answer back while Doreen sipped her tea. "He says he does. He'll try to get them to you." "Really, he would do that?" Nan held up her phone and shook it. "That's what he says. But don't forget, he's dying. He may not make it through the night." Doreen felt terrible for thinking only about the case file when this poor man was nearing his last few breaths. "Wow," she said. "Now I don't feel very good about myself. Here, I'm more concerned about the information he's taking to the grave than the fact he's actually going to the grave." "Right," Nan said. "It's a fine balance, especially around here. We tell death jokes as a commonplace occurrence, but it's really a way for people to ease up the uncertainty and fear about where we're all going." "Understandable," Doreen said. "I noticed a couple churches close by. Do many people attend?" Nan nodded. "Absolutely," she said, "lots do, and then they head on down to the coffee shop afterward. It's almost like a Sunday outing. Everybody looks forward to it. Even you." "I've tried most of the churches," she said in a conversational tone. "I just haven't quite found the one that fits." Doreen knew she should get off the topic, but she couldn't help herself. "Fits what?" "Me," Nan said brightly. "It's like clothing. You can't just wear any religion. It's got to be the one that fits inside. It's got to fit you outside as well, but it really has to make you feel good inside." Nan's phone rang again, and Doreen sat back and thought about her grandmother's church comments because they were excellent words of wisdom. She'd just never had that conversation with Nan before. Nan looked up and said, "He will try to send them over with his nephew. He doesn't want the lawyer to know about them, because otherwise he'll make sure it's part of the estate. But if he hands them off before he dies, then the lawyer can't do anything with them." "That would be great. Does he know where to send them, or should I pick them up?" Nan was muttering to herself as she answered him back. She looked up and said, "You know what? If I had just called him, it would have been a lot faster." "Sure, but could he have a phone conversation?" Doreen said. "Or would all the family have gotten upset hearing it?" "Quite true," Nan said. "So many people are just plain busybodies." "A lot of people would consider me a busybody," Doreen said in a dry tone. "I keep sticking my nose into other people's business." "Yes, but you have a purpose, my dear." Doreen looked over to see Thaddeus waking from his small nap on the table and eyeing her muffin. She broke off a little bit and laid it down in front of him. Instantly, Muggs dropped a heavy paw on her knee. She scratched him gently, running her hands down the length of his silky ears. "I don't think you need any more bran muffin," she said to him. But he stared at it with such a painful intensity that she finally gave in. But instead of giving him a piece of the bran muffin, she gave him a little dollop of butter. He scoffed it up like it was ice cream. She chuckled. "You know what? I think you'd eat anything." "Of course he would," Nan said, putting her phone down yet again. "He's a dog. By nature, they eat anything." Doreen smiled and said, "Thanks for being the go-between for me and this friend of yours." "I'm the go-between for a lot of people in here," Nan said thoughtfully. "Through all their support, we got to keep those steps outside my place, and you can bet the gardener is not very happy with me." "I'm sorry about that," Doreen said, "but it does make my life a lot easier." "Exactly, and that's what life should be about," she said. They waited a few minutes longer, but there was no further answer from her friend. Finally, Doreen said, "I need to head home. I've still got such a mess in the house." Then she sat back down again abruptly. "Do you have a list of what's really valuable in the house, so I don't just give it away in a garage sale for a few pennies?" "Oh, don't do that," Nan said. "No garage sales until you've had things appraised." "I know some junk is in there," she said, her voice rising. "But honestly, most of it's worth a lot of money." "How do I know what is and what isn't?" Doreen asked in frustration. "I thought I had most of the valuable furniture dealt with, but that's only what was in the living room and dining room. Then we found the basement full, and I need to get that garage cleaned out because I'm getting George's tools from Penny. All the workbenches, everything that's hanging up in that garage is coming to my home," she said in delight. "And I'm thrilled because I could probably use a lot of it." Nan looked at her in surprise and then chuckled. "You know what? That's a really good idea. Most tools aren't hard to handle." "I don't do well with a chainsaw," Nan said, reminiscing. "But I can use a circular saw and drills nicely. Never had time to try those air compressor things, but they always looked fascinating." Doreen just settled back and watched her Nan again. "I had no idea you knew how to use power tools." Nan waved a hand at her. "Sweetie, you don't know a whole lot about me in a lot of ways. But yes, you should get that garage cleaned out so you can get all those tools. A lot of money is in that. More than that, you never know when you'll need something. Although you'll need help moving it all." "I know," Doreen said. "And I need to get it out of Penny's garage as soon as possible. So do you remember if anything valuable is in the garage? Can we start there?" "There's car parts, I know that," she said. "Did you say car parts?" She surely hoped she hadn't, because that was something Doreen knew absolutely nothing about. "Absolutely," she said. "I just don't remember why." And she stared off in the distance, seemingly lost somewhere in her past. After another long moment, Doreen nudged her. "What about other stuff in there?" Nan looked at her, blinked a couple times and said, "In where?" Doreen held her patience and said, "We were talking about everything in the garage. It's pretty stuffed now." "It's the reject stuff," she said. "Stuff that I paid too much for and found out it was fake, stuff I moved out of the living room when I brought in nicer pieces. You can probably still get good money for some of it, but the stuff in the house is by far more valuable. I did do some big lot buys, and some of it I never even unpacked. I remember one. It had all these car parts and I was so disgusted I just left it there." "What do you mean?" "There was a time when I went to auctions a lot. Got some really good deals there too," she said. "And one time everything was all packed up on pallets, and I bought the whole thing dirt cheap. I had it delivered to my garage, and there it sits. I opened up a bunch of it, but it was all these car parts. She shook her head in disgust. Like, what do I want to do with that stuff? Exactly, Doreen said. And you can bet I don't either. Well, maybe ask Mac, Nan said cheerfully. You might get a few bucks back. I can't remember what I paid for it. Not very much. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it. But I was hoping to at least find something in there that would earn my money back, but as I recall, there wasn't anything of value. So you're saying that's all just sitting there, still in the pallet in the garage? Absolutely. But you can open the garage double doors without having to move it, I think. Once the basement was full, I just didn't worry about it, and I kept filling up the garage. I noticed, but it means some stuff in the garage could be valuable, Doreen said and stood. I'm heading home. I have a lot to sort out. She leaned over, kissed Nan on the cheek, gave her a quick hug, and hopped out across the stepping stones. If there was one thing she wanted to do, it was to get through sorting something. And not just a layer. Maybe when she got home, she could get into the garage and figure that out first. If she couldn't work on Penny's case, at least she could work on cleaning up her house. Maybe she'd get Mr. Solomon's files on Penny's family. Doreen grinned, picked up the pace, and called out to the animals, "Let's go, guys. This time, maybe we can do something in a big way with some of this stuff."